they're huge dehorning operations. So if you want to do it, I think you get huge teams in helicopters. You normally dart the rhinos from the helicopter, or you can also dart them from the ground. It depends how habituated the rhinos are to humans. And then you literally take the chainsaw and you cut off the horn.
Welcome to the Animals Around the Globe expedition.
Just a question regarding preventing poaching completely. Do some reserves take off the horns of the rhinos?
Yeah.
It was actually the same question I had too.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. This is called dehorning, and they're huge dehorning operations. So if you want to do it, I think you get huge teams in helicopters. You normally dart the rhinos from the helicopter, or you can also dart them from the ground. It depends how habituated the rhinos are to humans. And then you literally take the chainsaw and you cut off the horn, not like all of the horn. It's a little bit like cutting your nails. You can always cut the tip of your nails and it doesn't hurt you at all. But the closer you get to the real finger, the more it hurts. And that's also a little bit like it is with the horn, or if the farrier comes to a horse. So it's the same like that. You take off the horn and then they're sanitized for that procedure. You give them the anti-sanitizer and then they get up and run again. And there's no big impact on them. Of course, they need them, especially the bulls when they're fighting against each other. But the impact it has on the security of them kind of outweighs the impact it has on their kind of natural behavior. And it regrows like a fingernail or hair. It regrows and you have to redo that every 4 to 5 years if you're on that. And then the horn is stored in safes. So you obviously can't sell it. So a lot of reserves sitting on huge piles of a rhino horn. And there are theories out there because the threat comes from the illegal market in China and Southeast Asia, where this rhino horn is traded or in form of a little pulver as a truck, as a party truck. And as a truck, says it increases your potence, so your sexual activity.
Testosterone, huh?
Testosterone, exactly. So kind of like a natural blue pill, let's put it this way, natural Viagra. And so there are theories, if all of the rhino horn that is currently stored in all of the different farms and their safes, if you take all of that and just like flood the illegal market, that you will just erase the demand for it, because there is such a huge supply and the threat is going to be gone within like weeks. But it's a theory and nobody has tested it yet. Obviously, there's also the risk of that it will even increase the demand for it. I mean, it's the same discussions that you probably have when it comes to legalization of cannabis or cocaine or something like that. The only difference is it doesn't have any impact on you as a human being. Like if you eat your fingernails, it doesn't do you anything. It just grows. And it's the same if Chinese people in our age are out in a club and taking that as a party truck. It doesn't have an effect on you at all. So there are measures, there are ideas about that. There are also some university projects where they were thinking if you could maybe put kind of like poison the horn. So poison the end user but this is absolutely not ethical. So of course you can't do that. Yeah. So there are ideas how you can go against it, but the biggest protection you have at the moment are the people on the ground. And as long as the demand for the product is still as big as it is on the illegal market, you have to fight it from the other side. Of course, best thing would be if we could just erase the demand. Then we wouldn't have to do the protection on the other side.
That makes sense.
Incredible. Yeah. I mean,
and maybe, sorry to add that, and here we're just talking about rhinos. I mean, like, They're poaching pangolins for their scales. They're poaching other animals for their skin. Yeah, dolphins, whales, crocodiles for purses, and all of this just happens because of man's greed. All of us, just because we as human beings are not satisfied with what we get, and we have to take it out of nature.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Sad. Yeah. And how can I imagine like the farm itself? So I guess there are fences, there are gates, but the poachers, they can still like, I don't know, it's probably as big that you can't like protect all the entrances there, or how do they usually can get into the park?
Yeah, it is really a difference when we are looking at Africa, at what country you're looking. So, for example, Namibia, Botswana, not highly populated. So normally the reserves there, sometimes they have fences, sometimes they don't have, because they're normally sized up to 30, 40, 50,000. In South Africa, the private reserves are in 95% fenced. Then you have farms that are integrated into Kruger Park, so part of a national park, but most areas in South Africa are fenced. South Africa is one of the highly populated, or the most populated countries in Africa. And then this is also true for our reserve. So it is totally fenced. You have one entry gate. And obviously the poacher is not taking the entry gate and walking in and being like, oh, nice. We're not standing there, welcome. So they are going around the fence line, and they're normally using the parts of the fence line that are easy to look at. And there are areas that are a little bit back in the mountain. You have areas that are out on what we call the Great Plains in our reserve. And we're doing fence patrol. So our rangers are going along the fences, checking on snares, because sometimes they're just putting snares on the fence line and try to poach animals there. It's also meat poaching is also a big issue, not in our reserve, but in other areas where local communities, because they are starving and they need food, they are poaching animals from reserves with snares that are using to supply their families with food. And one option is to electrify fences. We also have different kind of game fences. So depending on what kind of game you have in there, obviously you need bigger game fence. When you have elephants in your reserve, then if you don't have any of the big five, that has an impact on that. But general game fence is up to like 2 meters. I don't have the specific measurements in my head right now, but it is fenced. And what we are trying to establish now is that you have like an electrical signal running through the fence line. And once this is cut off, because what poachers normally do, they cut off the fence, they go in, they already have allocated the animal they want to poach beforehand. They shoot it, they get out, and this operation doesn't take more than 2 minutes. And they have to be out like that they don't get caught. So if you have this electrical signal running through the fence line and the fence line is cut off, it cuts off this electrical signal, which alerts our alarm immediately. In the end, it's always a matter of money as well, on what kind of technology you implement. And you will never get rid of the people on the ground. Those are also the people, or one of the measures that are still having the biggest impact. In terms of